think I solved the problem with my extruder. It looks like it was heat creep. The heat from the hot end here was creeping up into the cooling block, which is that block down there. Now it's important that that block stay cool so the filament does not soften or melt inside that block, and it only melts in the hot end. Mine's at an angle right now because I want to maximize the gap here between the cooling block and the hot end block. I think it's called the heat gap or heat break. I had to cut my cooler because it does not fit with the hot block at an angle. They're sending me a new tube, so that should allow me to put the block back straight again, but for now I want to get this thing printing. I think I know what the problem was, though. I think it was my fault. This screw here on the cooling unit, the heatsink, was binding, so I loosened it a little bit. And I have a feeling by loosening a little bit, I wasn't getting good firm contact between the heatsink and the cooling block, so I was not getting sufficient transfer of heat to the heatsink for the fan to do its job and cool it. Now this thing's been running for a couple of hours, and this is still relatively cool to the touch, and I put my finger on the cooling block and it doesn't even feel warm. So I think it's working correctly now. I took away all the insulation and it doesn't appear to make a difference. It appears to have more than enough power to keep the temperature correct, so leaving it off, it's a pain in the ass. And we shall go from there and see what happens. And I printed out a test print, and it printed out correctly. This is before I realized I wouldn't be able to use it. I decided to use the cheaper white filament. Here's where it melted when I tried to put it on. I was like, oops, it touches. But yeah, it looks okay. No problems. It was a little shiny because it was a little hot because I didn't have any cooling on it. But it still came out good. I got no complaints. That's it. I'm going to try to print another one of these now. Except this time I added a base to it, so I'll actually have a 5mm base, and then it'll print this on top of it. So hopefully I won't get any of the missing extrusions. And later on I'm going to make a thick base for this and put an actual 110-volt socket in the bottom of that base, so just the bulb sticks up into here. I'll have to use one of those custom small diameter bulbs because it needs to fit inside of that opening there. So the bulb will be inside, but this way you'll be able to pop the top off and change the bulb, or whatever you want to do. So more to come. That is how I fixed it. Because I had to use a more powerful extruder stepper motor, I was required to put the gear backwards, the drive gear, because the flat portion of the shaft coming out of this stepper motor, the flat portion didn't go all the way down, so the gear actually didn't slide on far enough to get all the way in. So what I had to do is I had to Dremel out the hole going through the center of the heatsink because it was binding on the drive gear was binding on the heatsink once this was tightened down, which is one of the reasons I loosened it. Now that I've Dremeled out that hole bigger, there's no binding.